Well, thank you so much, Rennie and everyone. That was a great discussion and just what we needed to bring everything together around several of the topics that we've already covered earlier today. Giving the different perspectives really is part of the power and the special aspect of AMEC, where we're bringing all of those different stakeholders together. So thank you so much for bringing all of them together and for moderating such a great discussion. Now, it is my pleasure to welcome the tallest delegate of 2024 to the stage. André Manning from Tata is going to be talking about how data and measurement saved him in the boardroom. Not that I would think if he was in the boardroom he would need a lot of saving, but even if he needs it, I'm glad to know that measurement and data are the thing that will come through for everyone, even a literal giant. So, André, thank you so much for making the trip and being here with us today, and now the time is yours.
It's a clicker, huh? Thank you. Thank you, Jonah, for inviting me. So thanks, AMEC, for inviting me. It has been some years ago that I was at an AMEC conference. I see familiar faces, but I also see new faces, which is good. That means that our industry is at least developing. Thanks also to Raina, where are you? Yeah. Raina works and lives in Sofia, beautiful city. I was here 25 years for the last time. So when I headed up the Central Eastern European communications function for Philips, gee, things have changed. And Raina and I are also neighbors in the Netherlands because her family-in-law lives close by where I live. So when you're in the Netherlands, every time we drink a cup of coffee, which is good. And thanks to Jim. I only came in 20 minutes prior to your presentation, and it was good to see and good to hear that during your presentation it gave me the confidence that while I have no academic background in communications, at least 30 years of practice has taught me a little bit of academic working. So what I do is indeed, as you said in the theory of change, identify the change and also work backwards planning in development communications, etc., which was a good learning for me. So I took a couple of pictures from your slides, which I will bring home tomorrow. And I will, in my presentation, 25 minutes I have before we close, I think, before the recap. So this is the most challenging slot, but it's also due to my travel schedule. I would like to touch upon, from a client perspective, indeed, on how data saved me in the boardroom. And now it should go. Yeah. Because that's, from a client perspective, what we all want. We want to have a seat at the table. We want to sit down with the CFOs. We want to sit down with the CEOs. We want to sit down with all the important people in our organization. But then you have to bring something to the table. And during my career, which now spans 30 years, I have learned that using data, or talking about accountability in the boardroom saved me a couple of times, or at least gave me the freedom to operate in 3 different cases. And I would like to explain these 3 different cases. One is a functional change, which is the start when I worked at Philips. One is a business change when I worked at Booking.com. And one is an organizational change. And nowadays I work at Tata Steel, which is a huge steel producer, but also a huge polluter. So we are in the same league as companies like Shell, Exxon, etc. We are seen as an example of the fossil industry, which is not the most likely industry you want to be in at the moment. Data and measurement in the boardroom. I will start with Philips. How it saved me, and this is also a plea to you as communication leaders, but also people who run businesses to provide data, analysis, etc., to help us. and to work closely together. I think it was around 15 years ago when I headed up the global communications function at Philips, and one day we were in deep shit and we had to cut down the cost across the company. And I had to come to the CEO and he said, you have to cut your FTEs with around 100. So you have to go from 250 to 150. And you have to bring down the cost dramatically. And you have to at least look at all the activities you're doing, because actually what you are doing, I have no clue. Well, as a head of communications, that's quite a statement. And so I looked at my marketing colleagues and they didn't have the same challenge. And then I thought, gee, what do these guys do better than I do? And they make use of data all the time. I do this kind of presentations every now and then. And when I ask the audience of marketing people, and I ask them, how many of you do have a budget for analysis, for measurement, etc., I think 98 out of 100 people will raise their hands. When I ask the same question to communications people, how many of you spend 5% of their actual annual communications budget on measurement, evaluation, data insights, etc.? With good luck, 5 people will raise their hands. Still, I think I told this already 10 years ago, but still, in communications, we shy away from allocating budget to these kind of things. So then I thought, how can I convince my CEO actually not to cut the budget, but to increase the budget? And I worked together with our PR agency at that time. We came up with a profound measurement model, which was not only a monitoring model, it was not only an analysis model, but it was actually, in the end, we designed such a model that it was every month used in the boardroom meetings by the board of management, because our CEO loved so much what we did on actual reputation management across the globe, because this was across the globe, with the use of external agencies, that reputation became a topic on the board of management agenda. It was a huge exercise. It was also a difficult exercise because we had to take painful measures, because we excluded countries, markets from measurements. Because in the end we said 80% of our reputation is made in 20% of the countries across the globe, or 20% of the media, social media, digital media, traditional media, stakeholders, etc. So we had to also deliver some messages to countries that were used to have allocated huge budgets on PR, reputation management, campaigns, etc. Did it work in the end? Yes. Because in the end, our budget was not decreased, but increased for the next couple of years. And for me, the increase of budgets was not the most important thing. The most important thing is that our function was a consistent agenda item for the board of management. That was my success. And not because of me or the function, but because they thought it is the added value, and I think you touched upon that, Jim. Communication was an added value to the operations, to the business of my organization. Questions on this? We also have allocated 5 minutes at the end, I think, for questions. I'll go that was budget. I go to the second example. After Philips, I spent quite some time with a e-commerce platform that probably 70% of the people in the room used to get here in Sofia. It is a company called Booking.com. Am I right? Who use Booking.com today? there are some competitors nowadays. When I worked at Booking.com, for those who love soccer, football, the World Championship 2014 was organized in Brazil. 70% of the hotel rooms booked in Brazil were booked by Booking.com. So when we saw the stadiums full of spectators with people, 70% used Booking.com to get in Brazil. I think it was 2014 when the CEO of Booking.com, and Booking.com is a marketing machine, a very successful marketing machine. And the CEO, together with the chief marketing officer, came to my office and said, I didn't have an office. We were a hip and trendy e-commerce platform, so I had a seat in a factory of seats, etc. And he said, we have a huge plan to conquer the rest of the world, and we are teaming up with a taxi e-commerce platform, which starts with U and ends with Bur. It was 2014. Sorry. How do I get back? Yeah, it was 2014, and for those people who live in Europe, I think 2014 is at least every capital of a European country had strikes of normal cab drivers. I think Barcelona, Paris, Rome, Amsterdam, huge demonstrations of the traditional cab taxi industry against Uber. And then my CEO said, yeah, but we are going to do a marketing campaign with Uber. And my gut feeling was also expressed in what I said to him, over my dead body. Because Booking.com has a tremendous reputation, and now we are going to team up with a company who at that time didn't have a good reputation. What are you going to do? And my CEO was a Canadian who used to work at Starbucks and Microsoft, was data-driven. And he said, the famous words, you Europeans don't embrace technology. If I would leave it up to you, you would still drive cars and horses. Gee, if you come from Microsoft, I do understand. And then I said, how am I going to tackle this? And I said, I think it's a stupid idea to at least to team up with that taxi company, Uber, in Europe, because it will hurt us reputation dramatically. And then he said, I give you 4 weeks to come up with a business proposal to counter my suggestion. So again, I teamed up with my external partners, agencies, data providers, and we came up with at Booking.com and also at Philips, we had a strict rule that if you can't tell it with 10 slides, you shouldn't tell it. So in 10 slides, full of data, we were asked to present in the board meeting why we should work together with Uber, but why we shouldn't work together with Uber in Europe. At that time, Uber had a good reputation in Asia, parts of Asia. I don't know how it is today. And also in America, they were under pressure. So we said, you can do a marketing campaign, but based not only on my gut feeling, but based on real data insights, based on desk research. I would like to come up with the next proposal. Focus only on one geography instead of the whole world. We had a tough, good business discussion. I already mentioned we want to have a seat at the table. I had a seat at the table. I had a seat at the table with the CEO. I had a seat at the table with the CMO. I had a seat at the table with the CFO and with the head of investor relations. And then we decided we focus on one region only. And I think that was for me a demonstration how communications, my insights, my use of data, my use of measurement can add value to the table. My last company, where I work nowadays, Tata Steel, part of an Indian company. So our head office is in Mumbai and Jamshedpur in India. I started 2.5 years ago, and we have an organizational challenge. Our license to operate is under pressure. All kind of pressure groups, politicians, government support is fading. Trust from the own employees is at a low level. So I came there at the right time 2.5 years ago. And we knew that from an operational point of view, we had to make a drastic change in how we are operating, how we want to make steel in the next 50 years in a sustainable way. Not based on cokes anymore, on coal, but use different energy sources. But we were struggling what to do and how to do that. And our board of management, our CEO, but especially the colleagues in the organization, I think I received on a daily basis emails, André, our communication is bad. André, our news coverage is bad. André, why don't you treat the journalists in such a way? Every time, every day, every week, it was a demonstration of the fact, of the belief that people think that reputation is owned by the communications function, which it is not. Reputation is owned by the whole company. If our guys in the factories do a lousy job, of course stakeholders will react to that. It's not because media like it to write bad stories, absolutely not. But if we make ourselves a mess of our operations and don't paint a brighter future for the next 20, 25 years, I said our license to operate might vanish soon. At that time, data was not used in our company. So we started with data. We started with every 6, we had media monitoring, but a little bit of traditional media monitoring, which is more looking back and blaming all kind of journalists who write bad stories instead of looking forward. And we decided to do it completely different. So we set up every 6 weeks an opinion survey in the region where we operate, close to the coast of the Netherlands, but also for the rest of the Netherlands, to measure, to question a panel on a regular basis on all kind of topics on the operations of Tata Steel, if they have belief in this company. We do that every 6 weeks. And after doing that for a couple of months, I stole an example from my Philips time, and we set up consumer panels. So 4 consumer panels where we ask people to describe on a persona base what Tata Steel would mean to them. Can you actually visualize Tata Steel? And Amish in the back, I know that you, from an Indian perspective, have a completely different view on Tata Steel. But in the Netherlands, this was the view. An old 19th century steel baron looking back at a polluting factory. I think we recognize this kind of visuals from 19th century steel, rubber, oil barons, etc. The only thing that is lacking and missing on this picture is a bag full of dollars, because that's also what they gave us to us. Because you earn a lot of money and you're polluting the world, etc., etc., etc. That was the visualization of consumer panels. And then I brought it back to my office And I shared the visual with my CEO. And he said, actually, I've never realized that the outside world is thinking about us in such a way. This visual is now in the back of his room to remind him every day that our operations should change, our way of working should change, and that communications can help to make that happen. Communications is an instrument in making it happen. Communication is not the reputation driver. Operations, how we innovate, how we bring new products to market, how we operate as corporate citizen is much more important. What we've added now is another tool. We do now 24/7 stakeholder watch. So every day, every minute of the day, I can have a deep dive at data that is provided to us 24/7, how certain stakeholders think about us, where we should focus on, how can we do reverse planning, how can we set up the activities to at least reach out to those stakeholders that are most influential to us and that at least we should interact much more, which was not done in a B2B organization such as Tata Steel is. Probably in B2C companies, it's much more common, but in a B2B company, it is quite, I think, from my experience, quite new. 3 examples from a functional perspective, so the functional change, budget, a business challenge, how to conquer the rest of the world, Booking.com, and an operational challenge, license to operate, where I use data, and that's also my plea to those people who indeed own those data companies, those measurement data companies. Think together with your clients on what you can bring to the table, additional to an overview or monitoring. Help him or her to actually drive the change that is needed in the organization. Use of data measurement and insights, act upon is crucial for your organization, for your team, but also for myself as a professional. I've witnessed it 3 times that it was needed to bring data and insights to the table, not to save my ass, but at least to show that we as a communications function can also bring value to the organizations that we work for, either in private or in public. Any questions? That means no questions. No?
We have one question over here from Tim Markline, America's Measurement Sweetheart.
Not Ghost Measurati. So André, I love your stories, and to me one of the things about your experience is about speaking truth to power, but also using the data.
Yeah.
You mentioned the 5% litmus test earlier as you talked to communications professionals. Do you think 5% is enough? And I'm curious, based on kind of your recent experience, what are you investing at Tata Steel or some of the other places you've been?
I think we spend now close to 15% of a budget on data, on measurement. I think even close to 20%. I don't think that many companies, organizations allocate 20% of their communications budget to evaluation, analysis, using data, measurement, field research, all these kind of things. I still think that 5% is quite high. I would still go for the challenge in the next setting like this with only communications people and ask them how many of you use more than 5% or allocate more than 5% to measurement Not only monitoring, but real measurement, analysis, data insights to drive the challenges that you are confronted with. Unless you tell me something completely different. If people here say, well, I use 50%, then I'm more than happy, then I would give such a person a bottle of wine, but I don't think that such a person is here in this room.
Amazing. Another round of applause, please, for André.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us. He will be here for the dinner tonight, but
Yeah.
leaving tomorrow morning.
I'm leaving tomorrow morning early, but I will be around for dinner.
So make sure you grab him during the cocktails or during dinner.
Yep.
He'll be hard to find, but do your best.